Before we start, a quick note about what this channel is and what it isn't. This isn't a recap channel, and it's not a highlight reel. We're here for the parts of Panem that happen after the cameras turn away, the systems behind the games, the contracts hidden inside victory, the lives that keep unfolding long after the anthem ends. Each video on this channel is built to slow things down, to follow the logic the Capitol relies on, the details it hopes you won't connect, and the people who live with the consequences year after year. If that's the kind of Hunger Games analysis you're looking for, you're in the right place. Subscribing just means you'll keep a seat here when we move on to the next story. Now, let's start where Panem always wants you to stop paying attention. Cato is already on top of the world when the arena turns on him. Armor strapped across his chest, sword in his hand, blood on the metal cornucopia. Below him, the mutts circle and snap, stitched together from the faces of the dead. Above him, the sky itself is rearranging, the game makers literally rebuilding the map just to drag one wounded girl back to his feet. This is what a near-solo winner looks like in practice. One tribute so dominant the arena has to bend around him. At face value, Cato is the Capitol's dream. District 2, trained since childhood in some illegal academy where combat drills are just another school subject. He volunteers, walks in already a favorite, then spends the games doing exactly what he was built to do, leading the pack, hunting down weaker tributes, shrugging off injuries with armor no one else could afford. He barely even needs the career alliance. You can see it in the way he moves. He's not just part of the machine. But here's the real question. If the careers are engineered to be this strong, why does the system keep arranging things so that someone like Cato still loses? Why pour years of training, propaganda and sponsorship bias into a weapon only to break it at the finish line? The Capitol loves one archetype more than any other. The tribute who almost doesn't need anyone. No desperate romance. No underdog miracle. Just raw, terrifying competence. We're talking about the Brutus and Enobaria tier. The Kashmir and Gloss tier. The tributes who could, in theory, carve their way to the feast table and eat alone. There is a lot to uncover here, because that part matters more than it seems. On paper, they're unstoppable. The sponsors flock to them. The commentators praise their form, their promise, their perfect kills. The rules bend in their favor. Rich districts, better gear, better odds. So why do we keep watching careers get taken out by a girl with a bow from the seam, or a boy with a rock, or a single angry tribute from the grain fields? This is where we talk about the contradiction at the heart of the games. The Capitol builds these children into living weapons, then designs arenas that are perfectly calibrated to shatter them psychologically at the exact moment they should be winning. Cato doesn't die because he's weak. He dies screaming, torn apart slowly, because the show needs to prove that even its strongest creations are still at the mercy of the system. And that raises an even sharper question. What does it do to a district when their best trained child almost wins alone and still dies for entertainment? In this video, we're going to cover how the career system manufactures near-solo victors on purpose, why the Capitol wants them to get right to the edge of victory, but not over it, and how that turns someone like Cato into the perfect tragic advertisement for the games. Why almost winners are the Capitol's favorite toys. So why are those almost winners the Capitol's favorite toys? Because they prove the system works. To see that, you have to go back to the early games. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes shows you an arena that's basically a bombed-out stadium. No gleaming cornucopia, no hovercraft theatrics, just starving kids dumped into rubble, dying of infection and dehydration before the cameras can even find a good angle. Back then, the games are punishment first, spectacle second. Now jump forward to the era of Kato, Clove, Gloss. Suddenly the arena is polished. Weapon racks gleam. The tribute parade turns you into a walking commercial. Career tributes from Districts 1, 2, and sometimes 4 arrive as pre-packaged celebrities, already branded, already lethal. At face value, that looks like escalation for ratings. Bigger fights, cooler kills. But here's the real question. Why invest so much in making a tribute that strong in the first place? Why fund illegal training academies for children? Why allow volunteering at all, especially from the very districts most likely to produce killers? Why let someone become powerful enough to almost win the games alone? And once they're in the arena, why does the capital keep stacking the deck in their favor with sponsors, armor, medicine, and perfect throwing knives? There is a lot to uncover here, because on paper, a near-solo career victor is a nightmare for game balance. Kato leading the pack, Clove pinning Katniss at the cornucopia, Brutus and Enobaria in the quarter quell. These aren't just strong tributes, they're walking spoilers. One wrong cannon and the games are over in a week. But that part matters because the capital doesn't see the games as a fair contest. They see them as a recurring advertisement for obedience. A career who can almost wipe the board sends a clear message to every district child watching. If you train, if you buy into the system, if you volunteer, you might be that powerful. You might be the one the cameras adore. And yet, victory isn't the end of the games. It's the sequel. When a career does win, they don't retire. They get drafted into a lifetime contract, mentoring new tributes, training the next wave of weapons, giving interviews, starring in propaganda segments, playing the role of living promise. This could be you. The relationship between victor and capital is never equal. The quarter quell twist, reaping from existing victors, proves it. The moment Snow throws Brutus, Enobaria, Kashmir and Gloss back in, he announces that even careers were never safe. So why keep building near-solo monsters? Because they raise the stakes for everyone else. If one career can almost clear the arena, then Thresh sparing Katniss, Rue's alliance, or Katniss and Peter's berries stunt all look impossibly fragile. Every act of rebellion becomes a miracle that shouldn't statistically exist. This is where we talk about the capital's real obsession, not with winners in general, but with a specific kind of winner, the one who proves the games are unbeatable, right up until the moment someone proves they aren't. And that's where the system starts to crack. In the next part, we're going to cover how individual careers, Kato, Clove, Gloss, were engineered to walk that edge and why their failures are just as valuable to the capital as any victory. Our angle, the anatomy of a near-solo career. So here's the angle we're taking. We're not treating Kato or Clove as overpowered NPCs who just happen to lose. We're treating the near-solo career tribute as the capital's favorite product. The kid who could almost win the games alone isn't a glitch in the system. They are the system working exactly as designed. At face value, careers look like the one group with real power. They volunteer, they train in glossy academies in districts 1, 2, and sometimes 4. They walk into the arena expecting to be the hunter, never the prey. But here's the real question. If they're so unbeatable, why do they keep dying in ways that make great television? Why does the Capitol keep building these near-perfect killers and then letting them fall apart on camera? This is where we talk about the lens for the rest of the video. We're going to cover careers as case studies in manufactured weapons. Cato in his custom armor, roaring on the cornucopia, Clove with her knives so accurate she can pin a lizard to a wall. Marvel who can put a spear straight through Rue. Then you move to the older generation, Brutus and Enobaria, Kashmir and Gloss, victors so lethal that an entire rebellion plan has to account for them. None of these tributes just happen, they're built. And that part matters because the Capitol doesn't just train bodies, it trains narratives. The promise is simple: glory, wealth, and control over your fate. Your district feeds you, worships you, maybe even names their children after you. You think you're opting in, you think volunteering makes you free. In reality, it's indoctrination, sponsor bias, and arena design, all conspiring to prove a point. Even the best prepared child is still a child when the mutts come out. There is a lot to uncover here. The illegal training academies where 12-year-olds spar with live blades, the district culture that turns career into a compliment instead of a warning, the way sponsors pour medicine and food into the careers camp, not just because they're strong, but because the Capitol wants you to believe strength and obedience will always be rewarded. Even the arenas themselves are tuned so a Cato can dominate early, so a Gloss can shine in the bloodbath, and yet still lose at the exact moment a different story is needed. So when we say someone almost won the games alone, what are we really measuring? Is it power or skill, muscle, kill count, or is it something darker? Is it the distance the Capitol can push a child toward, total dehumanization, before they finally break on camera, sobbing on a cornucopia or laughing with blood in their teeth? That's the core question underneath this archetype, because once you see the near solo career as a tool of control, every choice around them starts to look intentional. Their training, their arrogance, their breakdowns, even their deaths. In the next section, we'll dig into those training academies and district traditions to show how early the games really start and how few careers ever had a say in any of it. What we're covering, from training halls to final kills. So where are we actually going with all of this? If the near solo career is a tool, not just a person, then we need to pull the whole machine apart. This is where we talk about the system that builds them, the tributes who almost broke the games on their own, and the version of them the Capitol wants you to see versus the one the story is quietly terrified of. First, we're going to cover how the career pipeline really works. Not just they train more. We'll start in those illegal training halls in Districts 1, 2, and sometimes 4, where children are running obstacle courses while other kids are still learning to read. We'll look at volunteering as a ritual, sponsorship as rigged favoritism, and why the Capitol pretends this is all fair at face value. That part matters because it explains why these tributes walk into the arena already convinced they're the main character. Then we zoom in. We're going to break down the anatomy of a near solo run through specific tributes who almost didn't need anyone else. Cato in the 74th, armored up and swinging that sword like the arena is his private gym. Clove, who turns throwing knives into a personality type and comes within seconds of ending Katniss at the cornucopia. Gloss and Kashmir, whose bloodbath efficiency makes the opening minutes of the quarter quell feel less like a scramble and more like a scheduled execution. We'll put them next to Brutus and Enobaria, the victors who walk into the 75th games with reputations as weapons first, people second. Why does the rebellion's entire strategy hinge on recruiting or neutralizing them early? What does it mean that even other victors treat them as moving hazards more than allies? There is a lot to uncover here about power, fear, and who the capital quietly bets on. From there, we'll pull back into a meta segment. The books describe careers as brutal, traumatized products of indoctrination. The films often frame them as glossy antagonists you're allowed to hate on sight. So we'll compare those portrayals. What brutality got toned down, what arrogance got amplified, and what that shift says about how the adaptations want your relationship to careers to feel. Here's the real question. Are we supposed to pity them, fear them, or enjoy watching them fall? And then, for the closer, we'll go speculative. We'll build a theoretical perfect near solo career using only canon traits. Maybe the sword work of Cato, the precision of Clove, the charisma of a District 1 victor, the survival instincts of a District 4 tribute, the cold focus of Enobaria. Could that tribute actually beat the arena itself, or does the system always find a way to break its own favorites? Along the way, we'll keep cashing in on the big questions. Why do these almost unbeatable careers keep losing to starving kids from the seam? Do Katniss and Peter even survive without Cato's final breakdown on the cornucopia? And what does the Capitol's obsession with grooming these favorites really reveal about power, punishment, and the false promise of hope the games are built on? Welcome to the arena. Channel context and how we do this. So, if the Capitol's favorites aren't actually safe, where do we even start unpacking all of this? This channel is basically our answer to that question. This is where we talk about Panem as if it's a real place, with archives, census records, and a very nervous sociology department trying to explain why a government keeps turning children into weapons on live television. We're going to cover the career system, sure, but also the things that orbit it. Victor's Village, arena design, sponsor economics, and how all of those pieces form one ongoing game the districts can never quite stop playing. At face value, it's fandom. You're watching a video about a career who almost won the games alone. But here's the real question. What happens when you stop treating that as cool backstory and start treating it as evidence in a decades-long experiment in control? That part matters, because once you frame Panem as a historical case study, every choice the Capitol makes, where they build the mansions, which district gets food, who's allowed to volunteer, starts to look less random and more intentional. So the style here is pretty simple. We take the law seriously. We treat the games the way you treat a real authoritarian ritual. We ask why it exists, who it benefits, and what it does to the people forced to participate. When we talk about careers from Districts 1, 2, and 4, we're not just ranking sword skills. We're asking why those districts were chosen to host training academies in the first place, and what that does to a 12-year-old who grows up believing the only way out is through the cornucopia. If you're new and you enjoy long-form, lore-heavy breakdowns, where we pause on a single line about Cato's armor or Enobaria's teeth, and treat it as capital policy, not just character flavor, this is probably the rabbit hole you've been looking for. We move slowly through the text, fast through the questions, Why did volunteering become tradition in some places and unthinkable in others? What does it mean that a victor from a fishing district can outfight a coal miner who's been starving since birth? We call the regulars around here our little victor's village, not because anything is safe, but because it's a place you can keep coming back to as we map out district culture, rebellion mechanics, and the strange relationship between hope and horror the capital keeps weaponizing. If you want to be here when we dive into sponsor markets, propaganda strategy, or the economics of a single parachute, you know what to do to stick around. For now, let's step out of the theory and into the blood. We're heading into the training halls of Districts 1, 2, and 4 to see how you even build a tribute who can almost solo an arena, and why the capital needs them to believe they can. From starving kids to trained killers, the birth of careers. You walk into those training halls expecting a gym. What you find is a factory. Back in the first decades, the games were simple in the worst way. Terrified 12-year-olds with no weapons training, dumped into bombed-out arenas, dying of infection or exposure on day 2. At face value, that sounds brutal enough for the capital, right? But here's the real question. Why did those early games almost topple the very system they were meant to secure? Because watching starving, unarmed children stumble around rubble isn't entertainment. It's a recruitment ad for rebellion. There is a lot to uncover here. The capital needed the games to be annual, reliable television, not a yearly reminder that they were butchering the poorest kids in every district. Fear alone wasn't going to carry 50, 60, 70 years of ratings. So the problem becomes functional. How do you turn state-sanctioned murder into something people in the capital cheer for and people in the districts grudgingly accept? The answer is skill, strategy, the illusion of choice. If a tribute looks prepared, if they volunteered, you can pretend this isn't slaughter, it's sport. This is where we talk about Districts 1 and 2, the capital's favorite children, already wealthy by Panem standards, already close in relationship to power. Quietly, illegally, training academies appear, not branded as murder school, of course. They're framed as combat programs, defense classes, prestigious youth athletics. Kids start playing Hunger Games the way you might play war with sticks, except their sticks are real spears. By the time those kids are 12, they've thrown more knives than Clove ever gets to in the actual arena. By 16, a boy in 2 can handle a broadsword with the same muscle memory you use to hold a pencil. The reaping stops being a lottery they fear and becomes a stage they're aiming for. That part matters because it lets the capital say they wanted this. Volunteering, which in a place like District 12 is unimaginable, becomes the main event in 1 and 2. The name pulled is almost irrelevant. The real tribute steps forward. Already known, already ranked from years of academy drills and mock arenas. The reaping turns into a twisted talent show where the audience has favorites before the games even start. You're not watching children be taken. You're watching careers claim their destiny. District 4 joins later, folding nets, tridents, and water survival into the same machine. Out of this pipeline, you get Kato, Gloss, Marvel, Enobaria, Kashmir. People who enter the arena as semi-professional killers, not starving kids. The capital's sponsor system then pours fuel on that fire, sending them better weapons, better food, better medicine. Suddenly, a near-solo victory is plausible. Of course, Kato can dominate the field almost alone, that's literally what he's been built for. So why does the capital love the almost unbeatable tribute more than the actual unstoppable one? And what happens when a system engineered to create perfect killers runs into a girl who was never supposed to volunteer at all? Inside the career factory, how you build an almost unbeatable tribute. To answer that, you have to step inside the career factory, not the arena, the pipeline that exists years before any reaping. At face value, the training centers in Districts 1, 2, and sometimes 4 are just sports academies. You're told it's about fitness, discipline, district pride. But here's the real question. What are they actually building? They're not training children to survive the games. They're training weapons to dominate them, preferably without needing anyone else. This is where we talk about regimen. You don't just get a sword and vibes. You get specialization. Clove doesn't casually pick up knives. She's drilled until a blade is an extension of her hand, until hitting an eye from 20 feet away is muscle memory. Kato isn't just strong. He's conditioned for heavy melee, for charging the cornucopia in full armor and winning. Gloss and cashmere are sculpted for close quarters killing, for turning a charming smile in the interviews into a throat cut in the dark. Around that, you get the basics: fire building, snare setting, edible plants, enough survival to keep you alive between kills. But the real curriculum is social. You train in alliance tactics, how to move in a pack, how to flank, how to use a weaker tribute as bait without ever calling it that. You rehearse banter for Caesar Flickerman, practice posture for the parade, perfect that lethal but playful persona the capital adores. That part matters because sponsors are watching you long before your name is ever called. And underneath the swords and speeches, there is a lot to uncover here. Psychologically, careers are raised on a story. The games are not a horror, they're your destiny. Other districts dread the reaping. You count down to the year you're finally old enough to volunteer. Death is abstract, a thing that happens to them. You aren't murdering children, you're claiming what was always supposed to be yours. That's the relationship the capital wants you to have with violence. So when you step onto that platform, you already believe you're the main character. The capital believes it too. Sponsor bias turns that belief into hardware. Confident? Attractive? Lethal? Gifts pour in. Extra armor for Kato. Medicine that would have saved Rue, dropped instead on a career camp. Better food, better weapons, better everything. A near solo winner doesn't happen by accident. The capital is quietly co-writing their story in real time. Inside the career pack, the system still pushes you toward individual dominance. There's always a Kato, a Brutus, an Enabaria, someone who walks in and the others orbit automatically. They train you to cooperate, but remind you constantly, only one victor. So you learn to smile beside someone at the feast. While calculating the moment, you'll put a spear in their back. But here's the twist. The capital can't actually let you be unbeatable. They need drama, underdogs, that fragile promise of hope from a nobody in the seam. So the arena itself becomes the counterweight. Mutts that ignore armor, forests that neutralize brute strength, rule changes that suddenly reward the very prey you were taught to ignore. So what happens when an almost unbeatable tribute meets an arena designed to humiliate them? And why does that tension make the games work better than any guaranteed career victory ever could? Districts 1, 2, and 4. where children volunteer to die? To answer that, you have to zoom out of the arena and into the districts where kids are raised to believe that dying on television is a career path. Districts 1, 2, and 4 are not starving. That part matters because hunger is the default in Panem. In 1, you have luxury goods, jewels, perfumes, the things the capital uses to decorate its own excess. In 2, you have masonry, weapons, peacekeeper training facilities. In 4, you have fish, trade, and a relatively stable food supply. When your family isn't wondering if you'll eat tomorrow, they can afford to wonder if you'll win. So instead of scrambling for tesserae, some children are scrambling for spots in training academies. At face value, those academies look like sports schools. You're lifting weights, throwing spears, swimming laps in District 4. But here's the real question. What sport ends with a mandatory death scene? These places exist because the capital quietly allows illegal pre-games training as long as the best products step forward and volunteer. This is where we talk about culture. In District 12, the reaping is a funeral in slow motion. In 1, 2, and 4, it's almost a pep rally. Victors are celebrities. Cato, Plove, Marvel, Kashmir, Gloss. These aren't cautionary tales, they're hometown legends. Their faces are on banners, their interviews replayed, their mansions visible from poorer streets. The relationship between district and victor becomes aspirational. If one of ours wins, everyone gets food, parties, a temporary sense of shared glory. So why wouldn't ambitious parents push their kids toward that? From an early age, promising children are sorted. You're tall, fast, good with a knife. You're not a problem child. You're potential. Aggression gets praised. Competitiveness gets rewarded. You're encouraged to treat the games as your personal Olympics, where the gold medal is survival and a house on the good side of town. There is a lot to uncover here because it's not just training, it's entitlement. Careers grow up hearing that the odds are in their favor for a reason. They're better fed, better armed, better coached. They're told that the rest of Panem is full of starving kids who should be grateful just to be in the same arena. So when a District 2 boy walks in thinking he's the main character, it's not arrogance out of nowhere. It's curriculum. And that's why their breakdowns are so compelling on camera. The moment Akato realizes the mutts don't care how many hours he spent in the gym, when Clove finds out that Thresh's grief is stronger than her accuracy, the capital adores that shock. It proves publicly that even its golden children are still disposable. From there, a near-solo career winner suddenly makes sense. Someone like Cato isn't a fluke. He's the end product of an entire economic and cultural machine telling him his life's purpose is to enter the arena and not need anyone. The promise is that he'll stand alone at the end. The twist is that the arena is designed to test whether he ever truly stood alone to begin with. So how do you keep kids volunteering for that fate even after they've watched careers die screaming on national television? Cato, the capital's almost perfect weapon. You keep kids volunteering by giving them a poster boy, and in the 74th Games, that poster boy is Cato. At face value, he's the career promise fulfilled. He leads the pack, without question. He's first to the cornucopia, he secures the weapons pile, and then he does the capital's favourite chore, walking through the bloodbath to finish off the wounded. The game makers reward that efficiency. They drop him armour, a sword that's clearly better than standard issue, and frame him in the broadcasts as the tribute who is simply doing what he was born to do. But here's the real question. If careers are supposed to be a team, why does everything orbit Kato? Watch how the alliance actually works. We're going to cover Glimmer and Marvel. We see Clove's skill with knives, but who does the heavy lifting whenever the games escalate? It's Kato sprinting after Katniss when she's treed, furious enough to spend an entire night trying to figure out how to reach her. It's Kato who charges Thresh in the rain, taking on the biggest physical threat head on. He survives the careers camp being blown sky high, the Tracker Jacker attack, and multiple clashes that would have killed almost any other tribute from any district. There is a lot to uncover here about why he can do that. Physically, he's the near-solo Victor prototype. Speed, strength, weapons training, plus the sponsors to keep him fed and patched up. Psychologically, he's been tuned for this from birth. That rooftop scene with Peter is where we see the crack. He doesn't talk about glory, he talks about being dead if he loses, about how he's been trained and displayed his whole life for this one outcome. You're not hearing confidence, you're hearing someone who believes that if he doesn't win, he was never a real person to begin with. This is where we talk about the cost of being the Capital's almost perfect weapon. Kato's arrogance in the arena isn't just entitlement, it's survival logic. If his worth equals victory, then mercy is self-destruction. That part matters, because it explains why, when the arena finally turns on him, he unravels so fast. By the end game, he's stranded on top of the cornucopia. Mutts below, Katniss and Peter above. No path to the version of the games he was promised. His breakdown, "I'm dead anyway," isn't just fear of dying. It's the realization that the system he served has no relationship to fairness. The rule change, the mutts made from fallen tributes, all of it proves the fight was never about the best killer winning. It was always about the best story. So could Kato have actually won alone in a cleaner arena? Maybe. Strip out the two-victor twist, remove the engineered psychological warfare of the mutts, and his training and brutality give him a terrifying edge. But that's the point. The Capital never wanted a simple, inevitable victor. They wanted you to believe someone like Kato could stand alone, right up until the moment they showed you he couldn't. And if even the careers can't trust the promise they were raised on, what does that do to the next generation watching at home? Clove, Marvel, Gloss, Kashmir, the other almost solo threats. So if Kato isn't actually guaranteed to stand alone at the end, who is? Or maybe the better question is, how many careers come terrifyingly close to being that solo killing machine the Capital keeps promising you on screen? This is where we talk about Clove. At face value, she's the knife girl, the one always hovering at Kato's shoulder. But watch what she actually does. Her blades are so precise that she nearly ends the entire Katniss narrative in one scene at the cornucopia. One throw, one cut, and District 12's symbol of hope bleeds out on the metal. If Thresh doesn't intervene, Clove doesn't just get a kill. She removes the story's main character with a single specialization. Here's the real question. In a slightly different arena layout, with fewer variables, how many tributes does she quietly erase before anyone even gets close? Then you have Marvel. He's technically a secondary career from District 1, not the face of his pack, but the spear that kills Rue is a masterclass in efficiency. One clean throw, no hesitation, straight through the girl who embodies innocence and the possibility that the games don't have to be pure slaughter. That part matters because it shows you how the capital scripts its spectacle. Marvel doesn't need a huge body count to change everything. One perfectly timed, perfectly aimed kill flips Katniss from reluctant tribute to vengeful symbol, and you realize a so-called supporting career can swing the entire narrative with a single motion. Fast forward to the quarter quell, and the training wheels come off. Gloss and Kashmir aren't just pretty victors from District 1. They are proof of what happens when careers actually survive and then get thrown back in. In the bloodbath, they move through the cornucopia with surgical speed, cutting down multiple tributes in seconds. 2 people, total control of the central zone. Do you even need a full alliance when a brother-sister pair can function as a near-solo killing engine, guarding the weapons, the food, the high ground? There is a lot to uncover here about how the capital rewards that kind of performance. And they're not alone. Brutus and Enobaria from District 2 come in with reputations already sharpened. Brutus won his original games through brute force and close combat. Enobaria literally filed her teeth into fangs and survived by tearing out a boy's throat. The rebellion's entire plan for the Quell treats them as top-tier threats that must be recruited or neutralized immediately. Why? Because everyone understands that if you leave those careers unchecked, they don't just win, they dominate. So, what pattern is emerging here? Across years, across arenas, the capital keeps producing tributes who could, under the right conditions, win with minimal help. That's not an accident. It's the product of academies, volunteering, and a promise sold to every ambitious child in Districts 1 and 2. Train hard enough, and you won't just survive the games, you'll own them. The reason that promise works is simple. A near-solo victor makes the audience believe in individual greatness, not collective resistance. And when that illusion finally starts to crack, when even the careers realize the relationship is rigged, the capital has a much bigger problem than one dead tribute. So where does that pressure go when the arena can't contain it anymore? So, why do careers keep losing to starving kids? It goes into the arena. Because once you start asking why that pressure keeps exploding outward, you run into the central paradox of the Hunger Games. If the careers are trained from childhood, drenched in sponsorships, and worshipped by the capital, why do we keep watching them lose to starving kids from the seam? Why does Cato die screaming, while Katniss, who learned archery hunting squirrels, walks out a victor? At face value, the system shouldn't allow that. Districts 1, 2, sometimes 4 pour resources into these children. They have private academies, mock arenas, mentors grooming them for years. The capital cameras adore them. So why does a scrawny tech from 3, BT, manage to rewire the sky and outthink entire career packs? Why does Johanna, who grew up in lumber, not luxury, manage to survive an arena built to kill victors? Here's the real question. Who is the arena actually built to favor in any given year? This is where we talk about arena bias. The game makers aren't designing a neutral battlefield. They're writing a season of television. Some years, the story they want is the perfect career coronation. Other years, they want a doomed romance, a clever underdog, or a tribute who accidentally turns into a symbol of hope. That part matters because terrain quietly picks winners. A dense forest full of edible plants and trees you can sleep in, that leans toward kids from districts where hunting, climbing, and foraging are real survival, not training exercises. A tech-heavy arena with wiring, force fields, and environmental traps basically has BT's name etched into the walls. When the game makers want a twist, they just tilt the board. And then there's the structural disadvantage built into being poor. You're underestimated. Sponsors ignore you. No one in the capital is betting their paycheck on the shaky tribute from 11 who knows which berries won't kill you. But in a long, grinding games, who actually has the edge? The career who's amazing with a spear, or the kid who can go 3 days hidden in a tree without food, because they've done that back home. Careers are lethal in open combat, but their real weakness is psychological. They've trained with wooden swords, padded armor, safety nets. They have been promised that the games are their stage. Then the force field fries someone in front of them. The mutts tear into Kato. The fog melts skin. And suddenly, this isn't a pageant. It's death. You see it in Gloss's shock when the plan falls apart. In Career's panicking when the underdogs don't follow the script. There is a lot to uncover here, because the capital keeps allowing this pattern. Why let the golden tributes fall? Why let hope attach to people the system was never meant to reward? To answer that, we have to step outside the arena and look at what the games are really for. Not crowning the strongest fighter, but managing fear, drip-feeding hope, and making sure every district stays exactly where it is. And once you see that political design, the near-solo career victory starts to look very different. Hope, fear, and the design of the almost winner. Once you understand that, you have to go back to Snow on that balcony with Seneca Crane. He's not talking about swords or force fields. He's talking about feelings. Hope, he says, is the only thing stronger than fear. Mass executions, those create fear. The games, those create stories. And stories are where you can hide a very specific kind of hope. Because here's the real question. Why not just lean into pure terror? Why not have every Hunger Games end with a career juggernaut mowing down starving kids with zero suspense? That will be efficient, right? At face value, an unstoppable career winner sounds terrifying. But run that version for 10, 20, 50 years. What happens? The districts stop believing the arena is a contest and start seeing it as a rigged slaughterhouse. If the same type of tribute wins the same way every time, there's no reason to watch, no reason to bet, and definitely no reason to train. You'd never volunteer. You'd never think, my kid could be the one who brings home grain and celebrations. The relationship between district and games would collapse into quiet despair. And despair is actually dangerous for the capital, because people with nothing to hope for don't bother playing by the rules. So this is where we talk about the almost winner, the near solo career, the Kato who could have taken the arena alone if not for mutts and a rule twist, the Clove who has Katniss dead to rights until Thresh intervenes. They are designed to look just barely human enough that you think, with enough training, with enough loyalty to the capital, you could almost do that too. Almost is the point. Almost keeps you buying into the promise. There is a lot to uncover here. A near-solo career is a walking advertisement for obedience. Districts 1 and 2 see Kato's armor and sponsorships and think, if we keep feeding children into the academies, we'll get one of those. The capital showers them with gifts, screens their highlight reels, turns their kill streak into aspirational propaganda. That part matters because it makes the games feel merit-based, even though the merit is manufactured from birth. But if careers always closed the deal, the illusion would crack from the other side. So underdog wins get slotted in, very carefully. a District 12 archer, a 7 or 11 tribute who uses the environment. Once in a while, the arena misbehaves and a poorer district victor emerges. The reason those victories are allowed is simple. They reset the narrative. Anyone can win. The lottery is fair. Keep watching. Keep hoping. Notice the pattern. The deck stays stacked. Biased sponsorships, custom arenas that reward brute force, mentors who are already traumatized. Yet every few years, the script flips just enough that you can point to an exception. The capital doesn't actually want consistent solo champions. It wants a rotating cast of careers who almost break the system, and rebels in the making who accidentally succeed. So the emotional roller coaster never stops. But if the system depends on almost winners and rare underdogs, what happens when a tribute refuses to play either role? Inside the career mind, entitlement, indoctrination, and collapse. When a tribute refuses to play either role, you get the pure career mindset. The kid who walks into the arena convinced the games were built for them, not as punishment, as a stage. Back home in 1, 2, or 4, that starts early. You grow up in a district where the training center isn't a rumor, it's your after-school activity. Adults tell you there's a reason you're fast, strong, precise, with a blade. You're not just another name in the reaping bowl because you're never supposed to be reaped. You volunteer. That part matters because it flips terror into pride. The games stop being a death sentence and become a promise. At face value, that sounds empowering. You're chosen, you're special, you're destined to be a victor. But here's the real question. What does that do to your brain when you're 12, 13, 14, and every birthday party is basically a pep rally for your future televised murder spree? There is a lot to uncover here. First, entitlement. If you've spent a decade being told the capital loves careers, that sponsors are waiting for you, that your district status depends on your performance, you don't just want to win, you believe you deserve to. That's why Cato charges the cornucopia in full armor, why Clove plays with her knives instead of hiding, why Gloss and Kashmir walk through the 75th arena with the confidence of seasoned celebrities. Aggressive risk-taking isn't a flaw in the system, it's the point. Because when you think the narrative is rigged in your favor, solo heroics feel safe. You break from your own pack, you chase every sound in the trees, you volunteer to take the lead on every kill. The capital's sponsorship bias backs you up. More food, better medicine, shinier weapons. For a while, the relationship between belief and reality holds. You act invincible, and the arena mostly agrees. Until it doesn't. The collapse usually starts small. A friend goes down in a way training never prepared you for. Clove pinned by Thresh, Marvel speared by a girl from the seam who was supposed to die in the bloodbath. Brutus realizing alliances won't protect him from a lightning tree. Or maybe you get wounded and the pain cuts through all the propaganda. Suddenly the question isn't, how will I win? But why am I not safe? You've been told you are the capital's favorite weapon. Then the game makers send mutts, or fire, or a rule change that makes your advantage irrelevant. Cato's final speech on the cornucopia is the clearest version of this. He's bleeding, cornered, holding Peter in a chokehold, and he starts ranting about being already dead. That isn't random villain monologuing, that's a kid realizing on live TV that he was never a person to the capital, just a tool. disposable the second the story needs something else. And the more the system built you up as inevitable, the harder that realization hits. A near solo career, but one everyone expects to cruise to victory, has the farthest to fall when the arena refuses the script. Their breakdown becomes part of the spectacle. Their screams, their confusion, their sudden fear. So what happens when a tribute sees that coming early, before the collapse hits them on the cornucopia roof? Book versus movie careers. How adaptation changes their power. In the books, that rooftop realization hits you from inside Cato's skull. On screen, it hits you through the glass. At face value, the movie gives you the same scene. Cato in his armor, the Capitol skyline glowing behind him, confessing that he was bred to win, and now he's suddenly prey. But here's the real question. Why does that moment feel colder, cleaner, almost stylized, when the text version feels messy and human? This is where we talk about nuance. On the page, careers are terrifying, sure, but you keep getting those hairline fractures in the armor. Cato's frustration when Katniss blows up the food isn't just rage, it's panic from someone whose entire identity is cracking. Clove's taunts at the feast are sadistic, but Collins slips in her youth, her need to impress, the way she overperforms cruelty, because that's what the games have trained her to be. There is a lot to uncover here in those tiny hesitations, those flashes of doubt. The films streamline that. Cato is framed first as a physical threat. The sword, the body, the smirk. Clove's sadism is dialed up visually. Blood on her hands, that gleeful, almost theatrical monologue over Katniss at the cornucopia. Gloss and cashmere in Catching Fire. They glide in as lethal Capitol favorites, all elegance and lethal grace, the camera drinking in their beauty and precision before you ever sense the cost of being that perfect. Why does that matter? Because what gets toned down is the machine behind them. In the books, you hear about the training academies in Districts 1, 2, sometimes 4, the way children are sorted, drilled, and groomed long before the reaping. You feel the sponsor bias as a rigged system. Careers get better gifts faster because the Capitol has already decided who deserves hope. On screen, those details are mostly implied. You see the careers as a pack of bullies, not the output of a factory. That part matters because it changes the near-solo narrative. In the text, a career who could almost win the games alone is horrifying precisely because you understand they never really had a choice. They've been pointed at the arena their whole life. In the movies, the film language leans hard into spectacle. Slow-motion kills, heroic framing, dramatic music as Cato charges, or gloss strikes. They look unstoppable. So when they fall, Thresh's rock, Johanna's axe, the mutts at the cornucopia, the defeat feels like a twist, a shock cut, more than the inevitable failure of a broken system. So here's the real question. Are you supposed to fear careers as monsters, pity them as victims, or both? The books keep pulling you toward both, forcing you to sit with the uncomfortable relationship between indoctrination and choice. The films nudge you a bit more toward fear and catharsis, then flash a hint of pity at the end. And when a tribute almost wins alone, that emotional tilt decides what you're really watching. A villain's downfall, or a weapon finally shattering in the Capitol's hands. Could Katniss and Peter survive without Cato's breakdown? So let's freeze that final image in your head. Cato in the 74th Games, armor-clad, shredded by mutts, clinging to the cornucopia, while Katniss and Peeta balance above him. You remember the screaming, the rant about being already dead. But here's the real question. If he never broke on camera, do our underdog victors actually make it out? At face value, it feels locked in. Cato's wounded, outnumbered, and surrounded by engineered wolves with his dead competitor's eyes. The Capitol has clearly decided it's time to wrap the games. But there is a lot to uncover here, because his breakdown isn't just flavor text. It changes the tempo of the entire endgame. In canon, Cato's psychological collapse buys time. He stops fighting strategically and starts performing pain. The Mutts tear at him instead of charging the cornucopia. The audience's attention, the cameras, even Katniss's focus, all shift from how do we kill Cato to how long will the Capitol let this torture run. That part matters because it gives Katniss space to line up a clean, merciful shot. She gets to choose the moment, not react to his attack. So this is where we talk about the alternate version. Imagine Cato doesn't snap. No rant, no confession, no acknowledgement that he's a disposable weapon. He's still the career who led the pack, the boy trained from childhood in District 2 to see every moving thing as a target. Cornered, he's not defeated, he's hunting. What changes tactically? For one, he uses the Mutts as cover, not as tormentors. He could time his movements with their lunges, force Katniss and Peeta to split their attention between teeth below and a blade above. Does he pretend to slip, draw them closer for a finishing grab? Does he threaten to drag Peeta down with him, betting that Katniss will risk a bad angle to save her partner? Suddenly, the cornucopia rooftop isn't a safe high ground. It's a shrinking island. A mentally stable Cato might force them into a rushed shot, a desperate scramble, or a misstep that sends one of them into the Mutts. Even if Katniss still wins, she might do it at the cost of Peeta's life, or her own leg, or the clean mercy that becomes so politically important later. And what about sponsors and game makers? If Cato stays composed, he remains the Capitol's golden career boy. The audience loves the confident predator who earns his victory. A calm, brutal last stand would sell the games as thrilling, not horrifying. No on-air monologue about being already dead. No unfiltered exposure of what the system really did to him. Do the game makers drag out his death then, or end it quickly to preserve the fantasy? Because here's the real question. Would they ever allow a poised, undefeated career to be humiliated by a double suicide threat? Or would they bend the rules earlier, hand him an advantage, nudge the Mutts, anything to keep that promise of career dominance intact? Once you see that, Cato's collapse stops being optional character drama. It's structurally necessary. His mind-breaking creates the narrow corridor where two underfed rebels can walk out as victors and symbols without the Capitol being able to edit the truth out of the footage. And if the only way the underdogs win is when the weapon breaks on its own, what happens when the Capitol starts designing careers who don't break at all? Named Career Packs versus Lone Wolves. Why the Capitol loves both. So when the Capitol starts designing careers who don't break at all, what do they actually build? You already know the opening shot. The standard career pack marching out of the cornucopia, blades gleaming, backpacks piled high. It's the poster the Capitol sells you every year. At face value, the pack is efficiency. Districts 1, 2, and sometimes 4 moving as one unit. They sweep the cornucopia in the bloodbath, secure the food pyramid, claim the best weapons, and then patrol in formation. One on point, one watching the rear, one scanning the tree line. You're not just facing a strong tribute, you're facing a mobile fortress with sponsorship. But here's the real question. Why does the Capitol always push that image first? Why highlight the squad instead of the star? Because early in the games, the promise they're selling is inevitability. The careers are the right victors. They volunteered, they trained, they have the relationship with the audience and the sponsors. If you're in the districts, you're meant to feel that resistance is pointless. And yet everyone, including the careers, knows the alliance is temporary. That part matters because it builds a second, quieter promise. This pack will eat itself. You watch Kato snap at Peter, Clove threaten Glimmer, Marvel get reckless. The Capitol doesn't just film the kills, it films the cracks. There is a lot to uncover here. The audience starts betting not just on which district wins, but on which career will turn first. This is where we talk about built-in betrayal as a feature, not a bug. The rulebook says only one victor. The training academies tell these kids they're special, destined, singular. So the moment the arena thins out, the real games begin inside the pack. Sponsors pivot. The cameras linger on the one who looks most comfortable giving orders or going off alone to scout and mysteriously come back with more kills. Then you have the pure lone wolves, tributes who don't want the noise of a pack at all. Think of someone like Brutus in his original games, or Enoberia with her filed teeth. These are close quarters monsters. They don't need a perimeter because they are the perimeter. They move independently, hit hard, and create a different kind of spectacle. One body, one blade, one uninterrupted kill count. So why does the Capitol love both modes? Because they script them in sequence. First, the thrill of the unstoppable squad, the sense that the outcome is locked. Then, the twist. One career emerges as the true apex predator, stepping out of the pack's shadow. Suddenly, you're set up for a final showdown. Apex career versus underdog, or Apex versus rival Apex, Brutus versus someone equally lethal. And our core archetype, the near solo winner, is born right there. They ride the pack as a launch pad, harvest the weapons, the food, the screen time. Then, when the alliance finally implodes, they prove they can stand alone against mutts, traps, and rebels. Until the arena itself decides that even an apex predator is just another piece on the board. So what happens when the arena starts shaping not just careers, but narratives that can survive outside the fence? The Capitol's favorite victims. Why careers are both privileged and doomed. Because when the arena starts shaping narratives, careers become the Capitol's favorite story template. On paper, they have everything. Better food on the table long before the reaping. Private training halls where 10-year-olds are practicing disarms while you're still figuring out how to snare a rabbit. Social status in Districts 1, 2, and 4 where the word tribute sounds closer to hero than victim. At face value, that looks like power. It looks fair. The careers trained, the careers volunteered, the careers deserve to win. But here's the real question. What does it cost to be born into that advantage? This is where we talk about childhood being swapped for combat drills, about kids raised on a cultural narrative that says your worth is measured in kills and camera time. You're not cannon fodder, you're a promise. Your whole district treats you as the answer to their hunger, their pride, their relationship with the Capitol. That part matters because it hides the trap. You're not just allowed to volunteer, you're expected to. There is a lot to uncover here. If your name isn't drawn, you step forward anyway, because not volunteering brands you a coward in a place where courage is defined by how beautifully you might die. And if you fail, there's no second chance. Careers don't age out and try again. You get one arena, one performance. Or you die proving that the system works. Look at Kato. Armed to the teeth, sponsored heavily enough that he can shrug off injuries that would kill a merchant kid from District 3. Or Clove, so lethal with blades that even other careers keep their distance. The closer they get to winning alone, the more the capital can point and say, "See, the games are meritocratic. Train hard, believe in the capital, and you too can almost conquer an arena." But watch what happens when that almost shatters. Kato's breakdown on the cornucopia isn't just a villain's last stand. It's a child realizing he was bred for a story that doesn't end with him. Brutus, Enoberia, Kashmir, Gloss in the Quarter Quell carry that same energy. Hyper-competent, terrifyingly effective, and yet completely disposable once Snow needs dramatic stakes. If they win, they don't escape. They graduate into a lifetime contract. Mentoring, propaganda tours, being wheeled out on talk shows to sell the next generation on volunteering, and in the third quarter quell, being thrown back in as sacrificial proof that not even victors are safe. So why does the capital love near solo careers so much? Because they're the cleanest argument that the games are about skill, not cruelty, even as their trauma leaks through the cracks on camera. So maybe the question isn't how powerful is a near solo career, maybe it's how perfectly has the capital polished this victim. Trained, fed, armed and optimized not to live freely, but to die beautifully, or to win and keep serving. In the next section, we're going to cover what happens when that polish chips and a career stops playing their assigned role. Building the perfect near solo career. Speculative loadout? So if the polish can crack, let's push it to the extreme. What happens if you build the capital's dream career from the ground up? A tribute so optimized, they almost don't need anyone else in the arena at all. At face value, that sounds simple. Bigger, faster, meaner. But here's the real question. How far can you push a single tribute before the games themselves push back? We set some rules. We're not inventing a superhero or breaking canon. This tribute still has to come from a real district, train in those semi-illegal academies, depend on sponsors, and play under game maker control. No secret force fields, no magic gear drops. No, the arena just happens to suit my one weird skill, loophole. If anything, we're going to cover what the capital would actually allow, because that part matters because it shows the relationship between individual power and systemic control. Physically, you start with Kato. Heavy armor, absurd strength, the kind of durability where a fall from the cornucopia isn't instant death, just the beginning of a slower one. Then you lace in Gloss's precision and speed, the career who can put a blade exactly where he wants it, exactly when he wants it. Finally, you add Inabaria's ferocity and close combat instincts, the willingness to literally bite through an opponent when the fancy weapons are gone. One body, 3 different threat profiles. You don't want to meet this person at the cornucopia or anywhere, but raw muscle only wins the early bloodbath. To go near solo, you need a brain and a face. So we graft on Finnick's charm, the ability to turn the capital's gaze into parachutes, medicine, and food. Our tribute smiles on cue, flirts through interviews, and understands that every sponsor gift is a political favor. Then we add Johanna's ruthlessness about resource theft. No sentimental alliances, no guilt about stripping a dead tributes pack or turning on a partner when the math demands it. Finally, we drop in BT's tactical thinking, traps, terrain, timing. This is where we talk about a career who doesn't just overpower you, they outplan you. Where do you grow someone like this? District 2 is the obvious answer. A family tied to peacekeepers or stonecutters, steeped in that culture where volunteering is an honor and the academies are the only real path out. Their childhood is drills, obstacle courses, weapons practice, and endless games replays, parents treating every training score as an investment in future Victor's Village comfort. The promise is simple: win, and the whole household escapes the quarry. So here's the tension. Even if this tribute exists, physically terrifying, socially gifted, strategically brilliant, could they actually beat an arena designed to favor underdogs or rebellion sparks? What happens when the game makers need a rue, a Katniss, a seed, a moment of hope more than they need another perfect career highlight reel? The reason this question matters is that the capital can always twist the arena. Mutts tailored to your weaknesses, weather events that split you from your gear, rule changes that suddenly reward alliances you refuse to make. If you're too close to winning alone, do they quietly tilt the board until you're forced into a partnership, or quietly kill you for better television? And if our optimized career starts to notice that, starts to realize the games are rigged even for them, what do they do with that knowledge in the middle of a kill or be killed arena? That's where everything breaks, and that's exactly where we're headed next. When the arena fights back, why no one truly wins alone. The arena is supposed to be the one place you're truly on your own. No allies, no parents. But here's the real question. Are you ever actually alone in the Hunger Games? Or are you just the most visible piece on someone else's board? Even our perfect career, the one who almost wins solo, every step they take, there's an invisible crowd moving with them. Game makers in their control room, sponsors in the stands, capital editors already cutting their highlight reel. At face value, you see one tribute sprinting through the trees. In reality, there is a lot to uncover here about who's running beside them that you never see. Think about direct intervention. Cato doesn't just happen to die when he does. The mutations are released on a schedule, driven by boredom and ratings. The fire that drives Katniss toward the careers, a weather event dialed up by a bored technician. Feasts at the cornucopia, rule changes announced at midnight, the infamous 2-victor twist in the 74th games, and then its brutal reversal. Those aren't background details. That part matters because each one can save or doom a tribute in a single sentence. You can be the strongest tribute in the arena and still lose to a parachute, or to the absence of one. This is where we talk about sponsors. On paper, a career from District 2 looks self-sufficient. Armor, weapons, food, medicine. But how much of that is really theirs? Cato's body armor, Clove's endless supply of knives, gloss and cashmere showing up in the quarter quell, already styled as capital royalty. Those aren't just personal choices. They're investments from an audience that's essentially co-playing the games with them. When your lungs are filling with blood and a silver parachute drops with the exact medicine you need, that's not independence, That's a very specific relationship with power. So why does the Capitol love the myth of the solo winner so much? Because it sells a clean story. One tributes strength, one tributes willpower, one clear victor that districts can project their hope and fear onto. The messy part, the mutts timed to arrive 10 seconds too late, the feast that conveniently restocks your pack, the sponsor gift that appears only after you've delivered a great soundbite, gets buried under the narrative of personal glory. Our hypothetical perfect career, the one who almost wins the games alone. Their optimization only matters as long as their story is useful. If the Capitol needs a tragic fall to justify a brutal arena, the arena will malfunction at the worst possible moment. If they need a symbol of promise from a certain district, suddenly the rule change favors a different alliance. So the real question isn't, could they win alone? It's, does the Capitol want them to? And in the next section, we're going to cover what happens when a career realizes that answer might be no and starts fighting the system instead of just the other tributes, ranking the deadliest near solo careers and your turn. So if the real gatekeeper is the Capitol, not the arena, then who actually came closest to breaking through that gate and winning the games almost alone? This is where we talk about near solo careers, the tributes who are essentially one-person weapon systems with a few extra bodies orbiting them. To rank them, we need a metric that isn't just who swung the biggest sword. Think about 4 things. Kill count we actually see or can infer, how much control they exert over the arena, how independent they are from allies, and how essential they are to their alliance's survival. At face value, that sounds simple, but there is a lot to uncover here because sponsor bias, arena design, and editing, both in-universe and in the films, warp what we think we know. So, loose mini ranking, at or near the top, it almost has to be Kato. He leads the pack, dictates strategy, personally executes multiple tributes, and is the reason District 2's alliance feels inevitable that year. When he falls, the entire career structure collapses within minutes. That part matters because it shows how the games treated him as the central pillar. Remove him, and the invincible machine suddenly has no engine. Right under him, I put Gloss and Kashmir together, which sounds unfair in a near-solo ranking until you remember the brief but terrifying control they exert in the Quarter Quell. Gloss kills Wirus in a single precise strike. Kashmir nearly takes Katniss out, and both move through the arena with the confidence of victors who have already solved this puzzle once. The question is, if you separated them, would either still dominate? The answer is probably yes, and that's exactly why the rebellion is desperate to recruit or eliminate them early. Then you have Clove, the knife specialist. Her personal kill count on screen is lower, but her precision is unmatched. She almost ends Katniss at the cornucopia purely on skill, no backup needed, until Thresh intervenes. In a different arena design, less rain, fewer wheat fields, more close quarters. Does she become the primary threat instead of Kato? Here's the real question. How many careers are supporting characters only because the camera followed someone else? Behind them, Brutus and Enobaria rank high for raw brutality and psychological impact. Enobaria's filed teeth aren't just aesthetics. They signal a victor who has turned the game's horror into a permanent identity. Brutus is so feared that his mere presence changes how other victors move. We don't see every kill, but we see the respect and the fear. And then there are the ghosts of earlier arenas, unnamed careers from the first decades, victors we only hear about in passing, District 1 and 2 champions whose reputations linger in training centre whispers. The system that produced Kato didn't appear out of nowhere. It's built on a long line of near-solo archetypes the Capital probably adored. All of this is subjective, of course. We're going to cover text clues, film framing, and in-universe propaganda, but any ranking is an interpretation of a story that was already edited for you by the Capital. So I want you to argue with this. Who do you think came closest to winning the games entirely on their own? Would your list change if we weighted sponsor favoritism more heavily? Or if arena design counted as much as kill count? Hold that thought, because next we're going to shift from who could win alone to why some of them start wondering whether they should win for the Capital at all. What the near-solo career teaches us about power in Panem. So when you picture that near-solo career standing in a blood-soaked arena, sword raised, you're not just looking at a strong tribute. You're looking at a finished product. We've watched how the Capital starts this process long before the reaping. In Districts 1, 2, and sometimes 4, childhood means training halls instead of playgrounds, blades instead of toys, mentors who are really recruiters. By the time someone like Kato volunteers, the games have already been his whole life. The Capital then layers on sponsors, armor, and screen time, pushing him toward that fantasy of one tribute mowing through the field. And then, they often destroy him in the most spectacular way possible. At face value, that seems contradictory. Why invest so much in a career only to let them die screaming on live television? But here's the real question. What story does that arc tell the rest of Panem? When a near-solo career dominates, it proves the system works. Train hard, be loyal, embrace the games, and you too might become a victor, move to a mansion, and never fear the reaping again. That part matters because it sells the games as a path, not just a punishment, until the path collapses on camera. Cato's final breakdown on the cornucopia, Brutus getting casually removed in the chaos of the quarter quell, Clove's skull crushed mid-monologue by Thresh. Each near-solo powerhouse becomes a live demonstration that even the Capital's favorites are disposable. The same narrative tool that says, see, loyalty is rewarded, flips into, actually, no one is safe. That whiplash is where rebellion starts to germinate. This is where we talk about hope versus fear. Careers are the Capital's promise made flesh. Work with us and you might win food for your district, wealth for your family, and a name the commentators actually pronounce correctly. Sponsors flock to them because they're a safe bet, and children in poorer districts watch them and wonder if volunteering is secretly the smarter move. But when those same careers die in agony, the message curdles. If even Kato can't survive the mutts, if even Gloss and Kashmir can be cut down mid-spectacle, what hope does anyone else really have? The games run on that tension, enough hope to keep you playing, enough fear to keep you in line. And then there's the moral knot. Careers kill. They hunt Rue, they chase Peter, they laugh during the bloodbath. They're perpetrators, but they are also products of a system that taught them from age 5 that their only worth was killing children for the Capital's entertainment. The relationship between victimhood and complicity gets very blurry here. Are you watching a villain, or are you watching a weapon that never got to choose its target? So when you watch someone like Kato almost win the games alone, what are you really rooting for? His strength, his downfall, or his liberation from the script he's been forced to play since birth. And if a near solo career ever decided their final act wouldn't be for the capital at all, what happens to the games then? Your victor's vote. Closing thoughts and next arenas to explore. So if a near solo career really did decide to turn on the script, what happens next? The arena doesn't just lose a tribute, it loses its favorite weapon. Across this video, you've watched how that weapon is built, from the origins of career training in those quiet, illegal academies, to the way districts 1, 2, and sometimes 4 raise children on the promise that the games are their birthright. At face value, it looks simple. Train hard, volunteer, win glory. But here's the real question. Why does the capital invest so much in a tribute who's supposed to barely need anyone else at all? We followed that thread through Cato leading the pack in the 74th, Cloves' blades at the cornucopia, Marvel's perfect opening shot, and later, Brutus, Inabaria, Kashmir, and Gloss turning the quarterquell into a reunion of professional killers. There is a lot to uncover here, but the pattern is clear. The capital's ideal narrative is the almost solo victor. Dominant, terrifying, just vulnerable enough that the arena still feels fair. That part matters because it exposes the political logic underneath the bloodshed. A career who almost wins alone proves the meritocracy of the games, reassures the capital that their investment in training and sponsorship pays off, and gives the districts a twisted form of hope. Maybe, if you play by the rules, your child can be the next Cato. Maybe your district can finally have that victor's village, those celebrations, that brief sense of relationship with power instead of pure fear. This is where we talk about what this channel is actually doing. If you're here, you don't just want to rank coolest kills. You want to know why the system keeps producing the same archetype and why starving kids from the seam keep breaking it. We're going to cover those pressure points, the quiet rules, the unspoken deals, the way a single choice in the arena can ripple all the way back to a district square. So if dissecting the anatomy of a near solo career made you rethink who the favorite really is, that's exactly the territory we live in. Deep, lore-driven Hunger Games analysis, the politics under the pageantry, the engineering of hope, and who pays for it. If you want more, there are a few arenas you can step into next. We have a breakdown on sponsor economics, why some tributes drown in gifts while others starve on camera, and what that reveals about capital class hierarchies. We're also going to cover the quarterquell from the rebels' side, tracing how you secretly plan an extraction under the capital's nose. And we'll dive into the non-career victors who beat the system in quieter ways, the ones who don't get action figures, but still manage to bend the games around them. If this video shifted how you see careers, tap that approval so the algorithm knows this corner of Pan Am analysis is worth keeping around. If you want to keep pulling at these threads, how victors are made, how districts are controlled, why the games keep evolving, consider staying with us for the next reaping. And tell me in the comments, what's your favorite career moment, and did it change once you thought about who wrote their script? In the Hunger Games, no one really wins alone, but together we can at least understand how the arena was built.